Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. In today's episode, I want to talk about what you can do to improve your performance in the speaking section of the IELTS exam. And I've covered some of the questions that have been frequently asked by some students, and I'll also include some of the lessons that I've learned through taking the test. Now, it's been over a year since I took the IELTS academic exam, and I got an overall band 8. As you can see on my score report, I got an 8 in the speaking section and 9 for the listening section, and 8.5 in the reading section. And I've talked about some tips and tricks on how to get a high score in the reading and listening section. If you're interested in that, you can go to the links down below in the description box. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now, the very first thing you should do when you prepare for the IELTS speaking test is to familiarize yourself with the test format and the types of questions you may come across during the test. And it's also very important for you to understand the criteria on which your speaking ability is tested. Because it's a test, you need to give what the examiners ask for if you want to get a good score. It's a simple logic, right? The speaking test consists of 3 parts. Part 1 is the introduction and general questions. Part 2, you are required to give a speech on a certain topic in 1 to 2 minutes. And part 3 is an analytical discussion. And each part requires candidates to demonstrate different speaking skills. For example, let's say in part 1, the question is, what do you do for a living? Then instead of saying, I'm a teacher, probably you can extend your answer by adding a few details. You can respond with, I've been a Japanese teacher in a college for about 3 years. Through this, you show up your ability to speak at length, and you definitely get credit for this. In part 2, you're most likely to talk about some past experiences. So it's important for you to practice talking about different topics related to the past, and make sure you know the correct past forms of some common regular and irregular verbs, and also pay attention to their pronunciations. The task in part 2 also tests your ability to organize your ideas logically. So it's important to practice outlining your ideas in the 1 minute that's given to take notes. You can make full use of the bullet points written out on your task card to help you develop your answer, and also try to use some linking words to structure your speech. The examiner will find it easier to follow your train of thought on the topic. And in part 3, some questions ask you to speculate about the future, so you probably need to use future tenses and conditional sentences. If you are not confident in constructing conditional sentences, don't worry, just do some grammar exercises so that you can strengthen your weaknesses. And other than that, you also need to express and justify your opinions in part 3, which may involve some analytical skills such as cause and effect, contrast and comparison, problem and solution, etc. So it's really important for you to practice these analytical skills. And part 3 of the speaking test is pretty much like writing a mini essay. Always remember to give some personal experiences or supporting examples to back up your points. This has the effect of extending your argument, because a lot of students find that it's hard to speak up to 1 to 2 minutes. Increasing your range of signposting words or phrases can help you speak at length. For instance, you might respond to a point by saying, yes, I totally agree with that, or yes, I agree with that because da 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 da, or you can say that again if you feel positive about a certain point. But if you feel a little bit doubtful about the point, then probably you could say, I'm not 100% sure, or I'm not sure if I agree with that because da 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 da, or I am a little bit or pretty doubtful about that. In addition, the knowledge of some expressions to buy you some time to think about what you're going to say is also very helpful. If you don't know how to respond to a certain point right away, then practice saying sentences like, I've never thought about that before, but, or wow, that's a tricky one, let me see, or I don't really know that much about that, but or that's an interesting question, and I think I would have to say da 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 da. So these types of expressions will definitely help gain you some time to think about the question. Now, What else? Yes, here's what you can say when you go absent-minded during the test. I know it's quite rare, but it did happen to me. I was distracted by the thought when the test came to the very end. I thought that, wow, it went smoothly, it's nearly the end, and then the tragic happened. I didn't hear the final question the examiner asked. If this happened to you, you can ask the examiner to repeat the question by saying, I'm sorry, what was the question again? Or, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it? Or could you please rephrase it? And then you need to listen carefully and respond to the question appropriately, okay? Now, asking the examiner to repeat the questions won't lower your score, but if you repeatedly ask the examiner to do so, it will start to lower your score in the vocabulary part, okay? Now it's time for us to see some steps that you can take to improve your speaking performance. Now, your speaking ability is evaluated based on these 4 criteria: fluency and coherence, pronunciation, grammatical range and accuracy, and lexical resource. Now, speaking fluently requires you to be able to speak at length without long pauses, and it also needs you to have a good knowledge of synonyms so that you can avoid repeating the same words over and over again, which is also related to another criteria, that is lexical resource. The coherence of your speech is reflected through using signposting words or phrases. Signposting words are words that indicate your direction of thought, such as however, whereas, for instance, although, furthermore, etc. Now, I highly recommend you guys to record your speech while practicing, then play it back to check if you have too many pauses. So practice using some filler words if this happened to fill the silence. For example, you can remember some words like sort of, kind of, at the end of the day, etc. To make your speech sound natural and fluent. The second one is to pay attention to the words that are repeated. You can go check the dictionary or thesaurus to see if there's any alternative option for that word. And the third one is if there's any hesitation during the speech, you need to think about the reason. If it's because of a lack of vocabulary, try to look for the proper words in the dictionary and remember to write them down on your notebook. In collocations, now collocations are words that often appear together. The more collocations you know, the more native you would sound. Now, the fourth one is to examine your flow and intonation of your speech. I know it somewhat overlaps with the criteria of pronunciation. You can improve this by listening to some authentic materials like YouTube videos or some other sort of videos like TED Talks. Just choose any subjects that interest you. Back in the days, I was a big fan of videos created by those beauty gurus like Michelle Phan, Ingrid Nielsen, Wendy Slifbook, Chriselle Lim. Just to name a few. I felt like my speaking and listening skills improved a lot through listening to their videos because their videos are usually related to mundane talks, so I was able to improve my speaking abilities around daily topics. And as time travels by, I'm starting to be more interested in some videos talking about current affairs and some other videos related to meditation and horoscopes. Before I sleep, I would choose a guided meditation video in English and then just start listening. Now, you can think of this process as an extensive listening practice. Even though you are not listening closely, just having the video on in the background can help you tune you to the rhythm and intonation of English, through which you are able to find out how English differs from your native language. With that being said, intensive listening is as important as extensive listening. It helps you to understand how certain words and phrases are used by native speakers in different contexts and how intonation and sentence stress can affect meaning. I believe that improving your listening skills has an enormous impact on your ability to speak fluently. A lot of people ask me what is the key to improving their speaking skills, and some of them even ask me if I have some sort of speaking course for them to take. And I always tell them what they should do first is to improve their listening skills. It should be your top priority if you want to become really good at English. And this applies to learning pretty much any target language. If you are planning to learn Japanese, Japanese is your target language. If you're planning to learn English, English is your target language. Abundant exposure to the target language can help you become familiar with the pronunciation features, intonation, and rhythm of that language. Now, what follows huge amounts of listening is huge amounts of speaking practice. Make sure you pronounce each word correctly. It doesn't matter what accent you have. It can be American accent, British accent, or Aussie English. It doesn't really matter what accent you have, but what does matter is your pronunciation. So pay attention to some tricky individual sounds, word stress, sentence stress, and intonation. If you are not sure about the pronunciation of a certain word, make sure you check them in the dictionary. You can find a lot of dictionaries online. You can go to Cambridge Dictionary, what else? Merriam-Webster's and Free Dictionary, and so on. In terms of Lexical Resource, which is also another criteria of the speaking section, the range of your vocabulary is evaluated. That means the wider the range, the better your score will be. So what exactly can you do to improve your vocabulary? Facilitate your speaking through reading and writing. What I mean by this is always remember to learn new words while listening and reading. Rather than memorizing a long list of unrelated single words, build your own database on different topics. Let's say you happen to see an article related to global warming, then you may extract some useful expressions like carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, exhaust gases, deforestation, climate change, etc. And then make a list or a lexical map out of these words. Since these words are related with each other to some extent, that makes it easier for you to memorize. And you can see these words in context so that you can understand the connotation, the meaning, and the usage of the words, because you see what word combinations or collocations often show up. And as I said before, having a good knowledge of collocations will definitely make your speech sound natural. Last but not least, let's talk about grammatical range and accuracy. Now, the two keywords here are range and accuracy. So you have to make sure that you use a variety of sentence structures ranging from simple sentences to compound sentences to complex sentences. And according to the criteria, it's okay to make mistakes as long as your mistakes won't block communication. Practice is the only way to improve your accuracy. There's no shortcut. Practice speaking different topics using the right tenses you're expected to use, and record yourself and play it back to check if there's any grammar error. You know, sometimes even a proficient learner could make some simple mistakes like not using the third singular verb where it should be used. Especially if you're under pressure, you're gonna make some really simple mistakes. On top of that, intensive reading is very important for you to improve your grammar. To conclude, comprehensive learning is the key to improving your speaking skills as well as your overall language ability. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening are not separated. Extensive input, which means reading and listening, lays a solid foundation for you to build your own work. And deliberate output, which means conscious speaking and writing practice, enables you to test and consolidate your knowledge so that you can build an effective linguistic repertoire of your own. Okay, and that's it for today's video. Hope you find this helpful. The information in this video refers to some knowledge related to second language acquisition and applied linguistics. If you're interested in these disciplines, I'll do some videos later, and see you in my next video. Bye.